So at some point in everyone's life, it's fair to say that a certain dream will come true. Whether it's one that you hope to accomplish in the near future, or maybe it's something you've had on your mind for several years. Either way, for the past few days, this guy has been living out a dream that I've had boiling around in this brain of mine for the past couple of years. Ever since I heard that a certain sports car was coming back to the market after a long, lengthy slumber. Well, you guys have read the title and it's finally here. Ladies and gentlemen, making its presence known this week on the driveway, we have the new and improved Mark V 2021 Toyota Supra. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so welcome to the new and improved 2021 Toyota Supra. Okay, I know I've got a huge smile on my face already, and I'm sure a few of you do too after just seeing the glamour shots from earlier, but you guys have to understand, this means more to me than doing just a car review, okay? Because this is the first ever time that I've ever sat behind the wheel of, let alone gotten to drive the new Supra at all. I know a lot of journalists have had the chance to drive the earlier 2020 and now the 21, but now I feel that Toyota has given me the best of the breed. And the only other times I've ever had the chance to even see one at all is whether I'm getting my RAV4 serviced at the local Toyota store, or maybe I've seen like one or two of them driving around on the roads here in North Houston. Now, unfortunately, as much of a dream car as this is for me, and I'm sure it is for many of you too, your dreams may be dampened a little bit by things like what it's going to cost you to get into the Supra family. Now, let's start with the basics. Before we get into the 3-liter premium model that I have here, if you want just a base 2-liter turbo Supra, before options and everything, the price is $42,990 MSRP. But if you jump up a little bit to the one I have here, well, it gets a bit more expensive than that, and I mean a lot more. Starting MSRP on the 3-liter premium is $54,490 before options, in which this case we also have $1,200 for the driver assist package, which includes a few extra active safety features. We have $425 for the special exterior color that we have on this car, and $80 for a carpeted cargo mat. Add all that up plus a $995 delivery processing and handling fee, and on this exact test car of mine, the price is $57,185. And that sounds like a lot, right? Especially considering you have a lot of other cars at that price point that can be just as fun and maybe offer a little bit more to those who are seeking a little bit extra. But speaking of extra, I've talked to a couple of Toyota stores around here in the North Houston area, and do you guys realize that at some points they are charging 5-figure market adjustments for these cars? I'm not joking. So 57 grand is small potatoes for some people, right? But if the dealer decides they want to add that onto it, you may be paying $70,000 to $75,000 for a car like this, which is just, I can't seem to wrap my head around that. But what I can wrap my head around is the fact I want to hit this start button, put this thing in sport mode, and take you guys and myself for a blast through North Houston. So let's do that, shall we? starting our drive here through North Houston out on the highway, let's talk about what actually makes a Supra a Supra. And I'm going to be doing this based on facts from the Mark IV Supra that everybody and every car enthusiast certainly knows and loves. Now, the Mark IV Supra, as we know, at least the good ones, had a 3-liter 2JZ GTE twin turbocharged inline 6-cylinder engine, which of course adapted the Toyota variable valve timing with intelligence system. Now, fast forward a few years later with the Mark V Supra, we again have a 3-liter turbocharged inline 6-cylinder engine. Except it's not the VVTi motor that everybody knows and loves. It is a motor from a company that has pinned themselves as creating the ultimate driving machine. Yep, it has a BMW engine in it. Okay, so 3,400 pound car, 382 horsepower, 368 foot-pounds of torque, and a BMW 8-speed automatic transmission equals a 0 to 60 time of 3.9 seconds. Just let that sink in for a moment. Under $60,000 MSRP and a 0 to 60 run that would embarrass a lot of higher dollar sports cars, rivaling even, dare I say it, on supercar territory. So even though I know this 3-liter B58 turbo inline 6 from BMW has a good bit of refinement to it, it's more modern, it's definitely a great engine in and of itself, it doesn't quite seem to have the historic value or the brashness of the 2JZ GTE that preceded it. However, in the modern era, we have a little something that allows us to sample that true 3.9 0 to 60 run, and that is launch control. So in this car, all I have to do is turn on the sport mode, knock the transmission into manual, flick the paddle down to 1, left foot on the brake, right foot all the way on the gas. Oh my God! Wow! That is brutal acceleration. Now, let's talk about steering. I go into a corner, the steering is pin sharp. Even as I've put it back in its most comfortable setting right now, it is very, very weighted. If I put it in sport, first of all, you hear the downshift already, it holds in a little bit of a higher gear, but the steering suddenly becomes, you're almost on a knife edge. It is just so pin sharp when you're driving this car, whether it's through a corner or whether you're just simply changing lanes. This thing feels like a true sports car. I'm sorry guys, that engine is just addicting. Oh, and the backfires too. The ride quality is quite firm. I can't deny that. I've put it in sport mode the majority of the time that I've had this car already, and it is quite a firm ride. It's stable, to say the least, but it is still a very firm ride to ride around in. Not to mention, you can hear it right now with low profile tires on it. The road noise is quite excessive. It is quite loud in here. That being said, I don't feel like I have to shout, but I do feel that my ears are being bombarded not so much by the sound of the engine at this point, but by the sound of the tires on the road. So if you really do want a maybe more comfortable sports car, the Supra isn't it. But if you want more of a hardcore driver's car that doesn't have a German badge on it but does have some German influence, then yes, the Supra is by all accounts a through and through sports car. Now, I talked about how this thing has a BMW powertrain, but it's not all BMW everything with this car. So let's head back to our favorite little scenic spot and let's go talk about the way that this thing looks. So now looking at the Supra from an outward perspective, I have to tell you guys, I really don't see a new BMW Z4 that's just been given a Toyota facelift. No, what I'm seeing here is more of Toyota's heritage really coming together in a more modern, sleek down design. But before we dive too deep into the styling, can I just talk about this car's color for a second? Because you really need a pair of sunglasses to look at this thing here in the sunlight. This bright nitro yellow exterior is one of, I think, 7 different colors that you can can get on any of the Supra models. Now, there are two limited edition colors, that being the Phantom, which you can get on a 3-liter premium like this one, or you can have a color which I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's called Refraction, and it's on only the A91 edition. Now, when you talk about the styling, of course, you can see remnants of the Toyota FT1 concept car with the sort of trapezoidal grille here in the middle and its two little subsidiaries. But when I look at things like the headlights, I almost see a little reminiscence back to the Mark IV Supra, specifically right around in here, this kind of curvaceous area that sort of slopes down, and it really gives this car a little bit more of a historic outlook on its namesake. Now, of course, these headlights have all the modern internals, so the LED strip here is not only your LED daytime running lights with a separate little LED parking light up there, but these also turn into your turn signals. Now, these are full LED high beam and low beam headlights. They do have auto high beam assist, and they of course are auto leveling and adjusting as well. As you look a little further down, my biggest complaint, of course, is the fake vents. But then again, this is not the only car on the market that's 50+ grand with fake vents pasted all over its body. If you look down a little further inside of these massive grille openings, you do have a slightly smaller intake here on the outer parts, but then you have the main one here in the middle. These sensors here lining the front of the vehicle, that is part of that driver assist package that I told you earlier. Of course, we have this beautiful black splitter down here on the bottom. I love kind of the little canards hanging off of the front of it here. But also, speaking of that driver assist package, the final mention goes to this little indented part right here in the passenger side intake. You might not be able to see it, but right here is actually the sensor for the dynamic all-speed radar cruise control that I said earlier is included as part of that driver assist pack. Now, of course, as you might be able to guess, it's not just the color and the styling of this thing that really gets me. I love little things like the styling of the wheels. Now, these, again, are specific just to the Supra, and these wheels painted in gloss black with a nice polished face on them. These are 19x9s in the front, 19x10s in the rear, and they are wrapped in some serious rubber with some Michelin Pilot Super Sports 255/35 series tires in the front, 275/35 tires in the rear. Now, underneath, you can kind of get a hint as to the braking power of this thing with that red brake caliper. You have Brembo disc brakes all the way around, 13.7-inch rotors in front, 13.6 in the rear, and of course the front ones get the big calipers, 4 pistons in front and just a single piston caliper in the rear. And then, of course, talking about the ride of this car, I mentioned it is very firm. We have a McPherson strut suspension in front with a new aluminum strut bar that actually goes from the strut tower itself all the way down to the top of the radiator. That's new for 21. And then in the back, we have a multi-link independent suspension with a 5-link setup. Now, really, it doesn't matter which way you look at the Supra. This car is not big by anyone's imagination. Nose to tail is about 172.5 inches long, and at its highest point, it sits just under 51 inches tall. Now, in terms of low, I gotta give mention to it again. I'm not a fan of these fake vents at all. You guys saw that Lexus LC500 I had a couple weeks ago. That thing had quite a few grills on it, but they were all functional. So the one here at the front, the one in the hood, and then of course that long one going up the door, they don't serve any purpose. They're just there for style, and that's just really disappointing that you have this beautiful, sleek shape with no real aerodynamic purpose other than all of the curves and the swoops and the lines in the bodywork. And can I just say, look at the size of this hood, for example. It comes all the way down here to the wheel arches, so pretty much the whole front of this car opens up. But what's not so, I guess, open is the features list going down the side. So the mirrors, they have matte black on top, gloss black on the bottom. They do power fold in and out. However, I've manually extended them out through the door switch for right now. They do have the LED turn signal on the side, and then as you come around, that driver assist package does also include blind spot monitoring with rear cross traffic alert. Now, while the blind spot may not be standard, one thing that is the Toyota and BMW collaboration smart access system. Now, BMW calls it the comfort access system. Now, on the Toyota version, as you can see, they have the logo on the back. On the Beamer key, of course, the BMW logo is the lock button, but you have unlock, lock, trunk, the panic function, and the releasable key blade that comes out of the bottom. And of course, they've now integrated the Toyota logo on the back. Now, the car is locked at the moment, so I'll just put the key in my pocket. I walk up to it, I grab the handle. You can hear that's what unlocks it. And then the lock part, normally I would expect it to maybe be this little guy or something right here, but the lock ridge, or ridges, are in this weird little spot right here on the inside of the handle, but you just lay your finger to it. Now, as much as I said the front of this car really looks like it's harkening back to the days of the Mark IV and the FT1 concept car, from the back, well, it really seems more just FT1. I really don't see any Mark IV back here at all, maybe with the exception of the little integrated trunk lid spoiler here, how it kind of curves up and then slopes down the back as well. We do have full LED taillights back here. Now, these are just the turn signals and the taillights. Your reverse light is actually this big old patch of white LEDs down here in the middle between the brushed aluminum active exhaust. Now, that exhaust we'll get to here in a minute, but of course you can see we do have the sensors for the rear half of the driver assist package, the parking assist that it gives you. Your backup camera, that's located right here underneath the Supra badge, which again, I love that badge. It really looks great. And then of course we have the nod to Gazoo Racing down here on the rear passenger side of the bumper as well. But as far as the exhaust, you guys heard it in the video, but yeah, it's fair to say this thing is a noisemaker. Now, although it's not its most prominent feature, and I guarantee you that pretty much anybody who buys a Supra really does not think of this very much at all, but the Supra is somewhat of a practical vehicle. Now, there is no external trunk release here. However, there is a release on the key as well as inside of the door. So we'll go ahead and just open the trunk here for a sec. And I was almost expecting that just the painted part of the trunk would be the actual trunk itself, but when you open it up, it actually reveals a pretty sizable hatchback here, which of course has a nice little privacy cover tied to it. And even more of a party piece is if you look inside, you can see the back of the front seats of this car. The only thing really separating the trunk from the driver's compartment are the two speakers for the JBL audio system that we have on this 3-liter premium. Numbers on paper for this car, you're looking at 10.2 cubic feet of cargo space back here, which as you can see, I've got plenty of room here for all of my equipment. I've got my jacket in here as well. So up to this point, I've been pretty glowy about how the Supra performs and definitely in the way that it looks. But the most disappointing factor about this car for me has to deal with the inside. It's kind of like when you get into a relationship and you see that beautiful person and you see how gorgeous they are on the outside, but then when their true colors show through, when you start to get to know them, well, it's a lot less than you expected. Now, there are some good things in here. First of all, I love the seats in this car. They're nice and comfortable, very supportive in all the right places. Maybe a little bit on the small side for someone of my size. Again, I'm about 6'1". I love kind of the silver accent up here with the nice kind of pass through. Actually, that doesn't even go anywhere, so that's a little bit of a disappointment. I was hoping maybe you could get like a race harness through there. But apart from everything, in pretty much every detail, this is a BMW parts bin interior. You look at the steering wheel, all it's missing is a BMW badge, and it would look right at home in any Beamer product. The center console, it's all BMW, even down to minute details. Like you look at the buttons for the memory setting here for the driver's seat, it looks exactly the same as it did in my dad's 2005 3 Series. Now, everything else is pretty rudimentary. You have your mirror controls over here, the button that allows you to fold in or out the mirrors manually or automatically. Both the windows are automatic, and your door locks are over here as well. Okay, so aside from my harsh criticisms upon initial impression, I gotta say, being that the Supra is a driver-focused car, maybe it was a good idea for Toyota to actually go with a BMW interior. After all, like I said before, they pin themselves as creating the ultimate driving machine. They don't pin themselves as saying, we create the ultimate luxurious driving machine, just the ultimate driving machine. But anyways, just sitting in here, this is a very driver-focused interior. I mean, you just look at the steering wheel, for example, there's really not a whole lot going on here. Just on the right-hand side, these are all of your radio functions, so your mode, volume, hands-free, Bluetooth, and voice recognition. And then over here on the left, that is purely for the adaptive cruise control. So the button to turn it on, adjust your speed, reset or cancel, and then of course your distance control and the set button as well. Now with a BMW interior, one of the things you'll notice is that you aren't going to get the most luxurious interior in the game. Definitely not the most technology-filled one either. However, everything is very simple, and that's not such a bad thing when, again, you're talking about a driver-focused sports car. I mean, just look at the infotainment for a second. We have an 8.8-inch touchscreen display. I kind of figured this was all controlled through the rotary dial, basically a borrowed BMW iDrive system. However, it is a full touchscreen system, and the functions are actually pretty straightforward. So you have media and radio, you have Bluetooth communication, you do have a navigation system, which I do apologize for the flickering. That's just an unfortunate part of filming with this particular camera. But you also do have things such as your connected services, active traffic and weather updates, and so on. My vehicle, which basically is like average MPG, average speed, many more functions like that, as well as active vehicle notifications. Now, if I reach down here, put it in reverse, it does come with a full backup camera, not a 360 backup camera. As you can see, just the camera looks out of the rear. However, you do have that front and rear park assist, as I mentioned earlier. Now, most of this time, you guys have known me as a complete and utter audiophile, and here in the Supra, it is absolutely no different. In the 3-liter Premium, you get a 12-speaker JBL audio system, and honestly, I'm having a hard time finding where they've put all 12 of these speakers, because I know there's at least one here in the top of the door, one in the lower part. Of course, its counterparts over there on the passenger side, and there are 2 large speakers hidden here behind the back of each seat. But other than that, whether you can find the speakers or not, I love the stereo system in here. It's crisp, it's clean, and it's actually not too bassy, so it really doesn't rattle your eardrums in this smaller enclosed space. So we press the volume button. Now, continuing the journey through the theme of simplicity here, I mean, you just look at some of these controls. The only thing I really wish about this climate control setup and all of these radio presets and the power button is I really wish they were aimed a little more towards me. Again, kind of harking back to the days of the Mark IV when everything was tilted a little more towards the driver, but that's really my only complaint with this center stack here. The radio presets, you got 8 of them. You got the ability to go back and forth between them. Radio band, AM, FM, XM, and so on. Same with radio mode, and your volume and power knob right here on the left. Not too far away from the start button, might I add, but I'm pretty sure you won't get those two confused. But the climate controls, it's just as simplistic. You have heated seat controls for both front seats, standard on the 3.0 Premium. Your rear defrost and AC controls, those are underneath your outer buttons. Then, of course, you have separate temperature knobs with automatic and max air conditioning functions, along with front defrost, separate climate zones for both occupants. So let's say I wanted it on my face and my chest. My girlfriend may want it on her feet, or at least the air directed that way. You can change that for either side. Same with the fan speed here in the middle, and you've got a nice little digital display up here at the top, which in the daytime, funny enough, is white, but when it goes to nighttime, this whole display and all the lights in here turn this real dark orange color, very reminiscent of BMW products of old, but not so reminiscent of an older Supra. And as you would imagine, the simplicity continues even down here into the Supra's carbon fiber laced center console. First of all, you got to mention that carbon trim. I love that. I love this little kind of divider here between your leg and the center console itself. But before we even get to all of those buttons, one of my favorite things is actually up under the center stack here. You have what looks like just a separate little tray. Maybe you could set your phone in there, what have you. But underneath that is a wireless charger. And actually, this little area here acts as a clip for your phone, so you can actually set your phone up underneath there, maybe put your wallet on top while your phone is actually charging. But if you want to plug in additional items, there is a 2.1 amp USB charging port down here as well. The more basic model Supras, I think, are a 1.5 amp charger, so the 3.0 Premium definitely gets the bigger of the two. But then all down here, it's all BMW yet again. We have basically the iDrive control system here, so you have media, communication, those are your Bluetooth functions, main menu, map and its navigation function, and also back and option, not to mention the scroll wheel, which usually does things like not only finding stuff, but it allows you to like zoom in and out when you're on the navigation setting, and of course you push that down and that's what selects whatever you're trying to get at. As you come down behind the shifter mechanism here, we do have things such as the auto start stop and the sport button, which is actually my favorite because not only when you press it does the active exhaust open, not sure if you're able to hear that or not, but also when you go into the sport mode, you have up here on the screen a display that allows you to configure an individual setting for the Supra's driving dynamics. So you can change everything like your suspension, your transmission, throttle response, and steering, or you can even go into the sport displays, which has like power and torque outputs just to show you how much you're actually using during those hard accelerations. Now, of course, the sport button may heighten all of the Supra senses, but if you really want to take control of it, you have to talk about the 8-speed ZF automatic transmission with, of course, its very BMW-esque gear selector. So you have the park button, which is just up here on top. And then, of course, if you want to engage any other gear, you just push the lock button on the side, pull it all the way back. That's drive. You can nudge it up a little bit. That's neutral. And then, of course, you can go into reverse, which you can also activate the park assist function by using this little button down here. Now, if you don't want it on, you can just push it. When the green light's not on, that means your parking sensors are not active. We'll go ahead and put it back in park there for a second. But my other favorite thing, aside from the traction control, is the button labeled safety system. So you push that, and up on the screen comes either a customized setting where you can at least activate or deactivate certain systems within the Supra's safety sense system, or you can even turn them all on, which I found out this car actually has a lane sensing system or lane keep assist. You get a little icon up there on the dash when you actually want to use that. And then just to the left of all of these buttons, you have the electronic parking brake, which of course you just pull it up. That's what sets it. Put your foot on the brake, push it down. That's what turns it off. Now, if you want any type of storage in your 2021 Supra, the only things you're going to find, aside from the small little glove box on the passenger side, are two decent-sized cup holders here in the middle. Of course, as you can see, I got my mandatory bottle of Pepsi here just to show you how well your drinks fit. And then, of course, you have a nice little storage spot at the back. You can put everything like your wallet, maybe a phone, or anything like that if you can't be bothered to put it up there in front of the shifter. And last but not least, there's certainly not a whole lot to talk about up here on the roof. As you can see, obviously, we don't have a sunroof due to the aerodynamic shape of the roof itself, but you do have a couple of things. First off, you have something that literally looks like it came out of an airplane. This is the icon for whether or not the passenger airbag is on or off. But then, of course, you also have your interior lighting as well as separate map lights and the BMW-like SOS system. And with all that being said, this now concludes our review and drive of the 2021 Toyota GR Supra 3.0 Premium. I do hope you guys enjoyed this review as much as I certainly have, and if you did, please feel free to hit that like button, and also while you're at it, hit that subscribe button down below, because trust me, it does benefit the both of us in the end. However, though, I have to give the biggest shout out by a mile to my friends at Gulf States Toyota, i.e. Toyota USA, for lending us their flagship sports car for an entire week. But at the end of it all, guys, I hope you enjoyed the review, and I will see y'all next time. Take care, everybody. Stay safe.